This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, people, welcome to the class. So today the class will be on the new guideline that has recently come. That is a management of thyroid disorders in the pregnancy. So, la- so now we'll just start with the guideline only, and a very important guideline. So, thyroid disorders, as we already know, these are the common disorders in the women of childbearing age, and but there is variation, and why the variation is there? Because that is, differences in the population is there because of the iodine status. Okay, so people having like more areas of the iron deficiency, the thyroid disorder would be more. Okay, so it depends on the population based iodine status. Okay, now just a small question. So so overall thyroid hormone production increases in the pregnancy. So can you people guess that how much it is increased? So it is 50%. Okay, so because of the increases demands of pregnancy, there is increase in the maternal thyroid hormone production, and that is by 50%. Now, basic understanding of the physiological changes that occurs in the pregnancy related to thyroid hormone is very important. Then we'll be able to understand, thyroid dysfunction that really happens in the pregnancy. So, as we already know, that during pregnancy, estrogen is increased, and this estrogen has got a direct effect on the thyroid binding globulin or TBG. So, thyroid binding globulin concentration is increasing, and it starts in the early pregnancy and becomes settles down by 18 to 20 weeks of pregnancy. Now, if TBG is increasing, then to bind that TBG, T3 and T4 production is increasing. Okay, and this T3 T4 production mostly increases by the first half of pregnancy. Then in the by middle of the pregnancy, a steady thyroid state uh, is reached, and the synthesis of thyroid hormone returns to the pre-pregnancy level. Okay, so what we gather from here, that the TBG is increasing because of the estrogen, and because of that the T4 and T3 are increasing, and mostly increase in the first half of the pregnancy, and that by the middle pregnancy it settles down. Okay, in we already know that HCG has got a thyroid stimulating property, has the same kind of structure. HCG also stimulate thyroid production. Because of that, there is a transiently increase in FT4, and also there is increase in FT3, and there is a decrease in TSH value. Okay, apart from mid pregnancy, T3 and T4 will decline gradually, and TSH will rise. So these are the physiological changes that keep on happening in the pregnancy, and because of these are changes, adjustment in the doses of thyroid or anti-thyroid medications are required in the pregnancy. Also, we have got pregnancy reference range. So reference range for thyroid disorders in when the patient is in non-pregnant women and the pregnant women are different. And why they are different? These are because of the physiological changes that happens. Okay, now basically fetal thyroid, they start taking iodine because it placenta is a storage house of that. So it start taking iodine from 10 to 12 weeks of gestation. Fetus start doing preparation of their hormone, and adequate amount of thyroid hormone production from the baby is there by 18 to 22 weeks of gestation. Okay, now till that time baby would depend on the mother thyroid hormone for development and for requirement. Because of the transplacental T4 is essential for normal fetal development, especially neurodevelopment during first half of pregnancy. Because of that, we are so much worried about the thyroid. because it is related to the neurodevelopmental changes in the baby. So we try to do in the first diagnose the thyroid in the first part of the pregnancy, so that we can offer the treatment adequately. Apart from this, the fetus will be entirely dependent on mother T4 before development, before fetus start developing its own thyroid hormone. So there are so many changes are happening because of the thyroid metabolism in the mother, and also the baby is also dependent till the time the fetal thyroid hormone are producing adequately hormone that is required for them. Okay, this is, I know this is a little boring part of it, but yeah, this is the basics of the thyroid. Okay. uh, Now pregnancy is a relative iodine deficient state. Why? Because baby gets iodine from mother, and iodine excretion increase in the urine, and there is a like kind of increase in the thyroid gland uptake, and a thyroid gland hypertrophies in the pregnancy, so that they can trap excess amount of the iodine from the blood. Okay, so basically a pregnancy is a iodine relatively iodine deficiency state. Now these antibodies, though just basic understanding is required, because there are many disorders of the thyroid, that are dependent autoimmune. So basic knowledge about what type of antibody and what can happen if they are there is required, because that helps in understanding of your other thyroid disorder nicely. Now the antibodies, these are anti TPO antibodies. These are the thyroid peroxidase antibody. Usually they are towards TPO enzyme, and TPO enzyme is crucial for the formation of thyroid hormone production. High level of TPO is found in the Hashimoto-thyroiditis, a autoimmune condition that causes hypothyroidism. So now, whenever you see hypothyroid patient in your clinics, basically you also advise them another test, that is anti-TPO antibodies. This is why we are advising that, because we want to rule out the Hashimoto-thyroiditis. Okay. Second important antibody is TRAB, that is thyrotropin receptor antibody. They usually target TSH receptor on the thyroid cells. The basic knowledge from our physiology, TSH receptors are there. So what this antibody can do, this can stimulate or block the receptor, leading to different effect of thyroid functions, because when it is required, when it is not required, according to that the function happens. But for our view, for our view, like we are we are reading TRAB in reference to the Graves disease, because this TRAB usually called stimulation, and because of the stimulation of this, excess of thyroid hormone production is there. This is the pathophysiology behind the Graves disease. Okay. Another is a thyroglobin antibody. Thyroglobin antibody usually binds with a thyroglobin. You from your basics, physiology classes, we know that thyroid hormone, thyroid gland has a follicles are there, and like inside that there is a colloid like substance is there, that is thyroglobin, that takes a part in the thyroid hormone formation, isn't it? So that is thyroglobin antibody. So elevated levels of thyroglobin antibodies may be there in Hashimoto disease, and this is also measured during thyroid cancer monitoring. Okay, this is basic information about the antibodies. And what we are used, like for this class and for the disorders, what we need to know is the TPO associated with Hashimoto causing hypothyroidism, and TRAB that is related to that is associated with Graves disease, and that is associated with the like thyroid overproduction. So this is the basic idea that is required for the understanding of the condition. Now this is again, now we started with the guideline here. Now common thyroid disorder that can be there in the pregnancy. So this is this is from the guideline, direct table is there. So if you have to find out which is the most common disorder, so you can see subclinical hypothyroidism. Now, subclinical hypothyroidism is the most common thyroid disorder that you can see. For part two people, the people, it would be important that they should remember these numbers. Part three people, these numbers are not important, but part two people, your exam is like tomorrow or day after. You will be getting, may get some question from this number. Please have a look at it. Okay. Apart from this, now same table, and just I put in this manner. So what are the hypothyroid condition? So according to this guideline, these are the hypothyroid condition. So this is overt hypothyroidism, that is OH, subclinical hypothyroidism, and isolated hypothyroxemia. So these are the three conditions that the guideline says is a hypothyroid. Now, overt hypothyroid we see in our clinics. We already know in overt hypothyroidism, there would be increase in TSH and there would be fall in FT4. Free, T3 and T4. These are the thyroid hormones that you know, and T3 has got 3 units of iodine, and T4 has 4 units of iodine. And mostly the T3 and T4, they are present in the body in the combined form. Only nearing 1% of the hormone is an active hormone, that is FT4 and FT3. Okay, that we all, that this is the basic knowledge that we know from our under MBBS days. So over hypothyroid, anyone can remember. We know this, that TSH would increase and FT4 would decrease. This is simple to remember. Now, what is subclinical? See, people, in subclinical, whether it is a hypo or hyperthyroidism, FT4 will be normal. So if it is hypothyroidism, again the TSH would rise. Okay, so this way remembering become easy. Now another, that like a new terminology for me also, that isolated hypothyroxemia. So the hypothyroxine is like T4 is called as an hypothyroxine. So that means that a free T4 level will be less. So I put it this way. So remembering, otherwise it appears confusing. So this way remembering become very very easy. Okay. So over hypothyroidism, increase TSH and a decrease in FT4. Okay, this is one thing we know. Subclinical, the problem that FT4 would be fine only TSH would be rising. And isolated hypothyroxemia, that means FT4, hypo means less, so T4 would be less. So this is according to the guideline, like what they say. Now, coming to the hyperthyroid condition, hyperthyroid condition, they have given divided into these three. Overt hyperthyroid, that we know that TSH will be low and FT4 will be high. Okay, FT4 will be high. Subclinical, in subclinical, FT4 is always normal, but TSH would be decreased. And gestational, FT4 would be high. So whatever the hypothyroid, overt hypothyroid or gestational thyrotoxicosis, findings are same. FT4 will be high in both, and TSH will be suppressed. Okay, and in subclinical, always the basic formula, that FT4 would be normal only. Whether it is hyper and hypothyroid, that you have to decide from TSH value. So this is the classification of the hyperthyroid condition as per this guideline. Now, like iodine deficiency, with the iodine deficiency, like how it is defined, defined as a median urinary iodine concentration should be less than 20 microgram per liter. This number may be necessary for part 2. What are the risks? We already know: goiter, hypothyroidism, neurological and development problems, and infertility, miscarriage, infant mortality, trophoblastic and fetal disorder, intellectual development, deaf, mutism, motor rigidity, child and adult learning disability. So much this iodine is causing. Okay. Apart from this, in the areas where severe iron deficiency is there, women would have thyroid nodules. and this thyroid nodule will be there in 30% of the pregnant women. Okay. Apart from this, overt hypothyroidism or thyroid deficiency may be associated with spontaneous miscarriage, preeclampsia, perinatal death, preterm birth, low birth weight, and PPH. So this could be caused by overt hypothyroidism, and all of this is directly whatever the guideline writes. I have put the same thing. Now, overt hypothyroidism in the pregnancy, preeclampsia, preterm birth, GFR, and maternal heart failure. So this is overt hyperthyroidism. Okay, Graves disease. Graves disease can cause preeclampsia, preterm, FGR, and maternal heart failure. Transient thyrotoxicosis is common, affect 1 to 5% of the pregnancy. Self-limiting condition, no treatment is required. That is important to remember. In upcoming slides, I would be explaining more details of the gestational transient thyrotoxicosis. Now, hyperthyroidism, a rarer condition caused by Graves disease, and this is the prevalence. This is a prevalence. Pre-existing Graves is this 0.5 to 1.3. New onset Graves is 0.05%, and toxic nodule will be 0.1%. This percentages may be necessary for part 2 people, nothing for part 3 is required. Now, Graves disease, as I already told you, that it happens because there is a TRAB antibody or thyroid receptor antibodies are there. These are the stimulating antibodies. Okay, as it is an autoimmune condition, as the immunity pregnancy immunosuppression occurs. So this can usually autoimmune condition they improve in the with the advancing gestation. What is subclinical hyperthyroidism? Subclinical hyperthyroidism usually, as I already told, that a T4 condition, a T4 would be normal, but TSH would be low. Okay, and this most common antibody that is present is a TOAB. This is according to the guideline. Apart from this, if the thyroid autoimmunity is there, there could be possibility of postpartum thyroiditis. So that the postpartum thyroiditis, I'm just speaking in details in upcoming slides. Now, coming to the thyroid function test. So, to diagnose thyroid dysfunction, trimester specific and manufacturer specific range should be used for TSH and FT3, FT4. Okay. Now, if this range is not available, then TSH should be at the level of 4 milli international unit in the pregnancy. Now this part is new in the guideline. So this is the reference ranges that given in the guideline, but obvious nobody can remember that. So this gives us a message that whenever we are reading the thyroid results of a pregnant woman in our clinical practice also, then we should be aware the lab, whatever the lab that the lab sending the result to us, then we should see that reference range. Previously from the strategy also, and what we used to read that set limit for first trimester is of TSH is 2.5, and second and third trimester is 3. But this part, the guideline says something different. The guideline is not giving that kind of range. uh, what the guideline says, so if they have given first semester, second trimester, and third trimester, either you have to follow the ranges that has been given by the various method which they are detecting the maternal blood investigation. If it is not available with you, then upper limit of TSS should be 4 milli international unit in the pregnancy. So this is a good part, and you guys should remember that now the limit, universal limit, the guideline says is a 4 only. Okay, if this like if a manufacturer specific range is not available, then you have to use 4 as a TSH upper limit. Okay, so a small question for you. Pregnant and breastfeeding women should take how much daily intake of iodine should be there? Anyone want to guess? No one want to guess. Okay. So a guideline recommends that 200 to 250 microgram of iodine should be the intake for taken by the pregnant or the breastfeeding woman daily. Okay, so this value has to be remembered by the part 2 people. So this the guideline says that the pregnant and the breastfeeding woman should have a total intake of at least 200 to 250 microgram of iodine, and consideration they should be there. They should take iodine rich food, daily supplementation of 150 microgram in the form of potassium iodide as present in the common prenatal supplements. Okay, if deemed appropriate, it should be started 3 months in advance or as possible in the pregnancy. So now imagine we used to like supplement our woman with the folic acid 3 month prior or 1 month prior. Now the guideline recommends that the iodine should ideally be if supplementation is required, then it should be started 3 months in prior to pregnancy or as early as possible in the pregnancy. So this should be the total daily intake, and this could be the daily like 150 microgram should be the daily oral supplementation. Okay, apart from this, what they say that the woman should take one rather than multiple iodine containing supplements at same time. And dietary intake and other intake, like it should not exceed 500 from 500 microgram daily. Okay, it is also important to know, otherwise there would be toxicity only. So food that is richer in iodine, dairy products, fish, iodized salt should be considered in a at a risk. The woman, you think that there would be iodine like intake is low. Apart from this, iodine supplementation can be done. Okay, so basically you iodine supplementation is required. Daily recommended dose in the pregnancy is the 252 of 250 microgram. I, more than 500 should not be taken, and if the iodine has to be started, it has to be started 3 months prior. Now, testing for a thyroid disorder in pregnancy, like in UK, universal thyroid dysfunction testing is not recommended. You are already aware from your antenatal care guideline by NICE, when we are doing booking bloods, we are not testing thyroid. So in UK, universal thyroid testing is not required. And if the population has subpopulation that has got risk factor, for those women only they will be testing for thyroid, and usually it is in the first trimester, and pregnancy specific TSS and FT4 value should be used. Now what are the patient where thyroid testing should be done? Okay, let me give you the okay, one question you anyone want to answer: which of the following is not an indication for thyroid test in pregnancy? Any one of you can just guess that where you will not test thyroid. Any one guess? Okay, no one want to guess. So people, you can understand all SLE, la antibody, and previous head and neck irradiation, second trimester miscarriage, and type 2 diabetes mellitus. So type 2 diabetes mellitus, if I put here type 1, yes, it would be required because that has got some autoimmune relation. Type 2 is a usually acquired later in the life, and it is not linked to the thyroid condition. Okay, so it now this is a table that you should be knowing, because these are the conditions where thyroid testing to be done according to this guideline. So what are the conditions where thyroid testing has to be done? Personal history of thyroid condition and previous insults, such as if there had been any thyroid surgery, goiter, nodule, subclinical overthyroid, uh, previous thyroiditis, either it is autoimmune infections or TPO positivity, if there had been radioiodine ablation, if medication that affect thyroid functioning, such as lithium and amiduron, So you guys should be remembering that in postnatal, when we were doing lithium, lithium task that came in the exam, for those patients we were checking thyroid. Okay, then previous head and neck irradiation, and if the patient has got cardiac dysrhythmia, if there is significant pre-pregnancy loss is there, if enlarged thyroid gland is there. So this will be the condition where thyroid should be tested. This is the autoimmune condition, type 1 diabetes, SLE, anti-RO-La positive condition, APS, antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. So this is autoimmune condition, and one autoimmune condition can be associated with other. Because of that, in this condition we would be checking for the thyroid antibodies, TFT or thyroid function test. And this will be the lab of statics. If a stillbirth is there, we will do thyroid test. If second trimester miscarriage is there, we will do thyroid test. Tests are recommended if they are not done at the time of pregnancy loss or post adverse event. So these are the conditions. If your role player in part 3 exam, they have got any such kind of history, please do arrange thyroid test for the woman, that would carry a mark. And part 2 people, anything can come from this table, and you have to find out where the thyroid test is done, or where you can omit it. Okay, like the small question I put. Now a woman with a hypothyroidism. So what is a now this is a pre-pregnancy care. So what pre-pregnancy, if the patient has overt hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism, that means the TSH is more than 10 and FT4 is normal. In that situation, they will start altroxin or levothyroxine, and they would and what is the recommendation? The TSH should be less than 2.5 international milli per liter is recommended. Okay. Now, if the patient in pre-pregnancy, if the patient has subclinical hypothyroid, and particularly she also knows that she may have TPO antibody, okay, in those condition also, like the same thing, that pre levothyroxine to be started pre-conception, and what is the level? It should be less than 2.5 milli international unit per liter. Okay, so whatever the subclinical hypothyroid or overt hypothyroid, if the TSH value is more than 10 and accompanied by normal TF, FT4 in subclinical, or completely overt hypothyroid, in those conditions, before the patient gets pregnant or in pre-pregnancy period, levothyroxine to be started. And this we aim that TSH should be less than 2.5. So this is the recommendation from this guideline in the pre-pregnancy care. Okay. Apart from this, another small question. Now FT4 is low and TSH is normal. So this is kind of condition that ideally the FT4 is high only. So why it is low? So this is if this kind of condition is there, then they should be referred with the endocrine team for the further investigation. Okay. Now this is the hypothyroid symptom. This you already know from your previous knowledge. I would not be saying anything about it. Now pre-pregnancy care, again the same thing it is there. like uh, Patient on levothyroxine therapy for thyroid, they should counsel, they should be increase in the dose of levothyroxine, okay, by 25% to 30 as they become positive pregnancy test. Now this is the thing that it is a new knowledge for me also, that when the patient becomes a hypothyroid patient becomes pregnant, that time there should be change in the levothyroxine. So what they want, so please remember this, that approximately the patient should increase the thyroid values level, like altroxin, by 25 to 30%, and this is a recommendation. So either they should double the dose on 2 days each week, or if they are taking less than 100, then 25 microgram per day should be increased. Or if they are taking more than 100 levothyroxine, then 50 microgram per day should be increased. So this is a very like new knowledge, and all of you people should learn this, because our three thyroid scenarios, like in this exam, two thyroid scenarios came. So they are looking for the knowledge from the guideline. So I'm repeating it again. If your hypothyroid patient becomes pregnant, the moment their pregnancy test becomes positive, they have to increase the dose. Percentage is 25 to 30%. Apart, how they would do that? So either they can take double dose in 1 week. Every week, they 2 days they can take double dose. Apart from this, if your patient is taking less than 100, increase by 25 microgram. And if your patient is taking more than 100, increase by 50 microgram. So this part, it is very important for the part 2, part 3, and your clinical practice also. So you should be aware of that. Now, if a patient is kind of newly diagnosed with the hypothyroid condition, in that situation, levothyroxine treatment to be started as early as possible. Suggested dose is 1.6 microgram per kilogram per day, and thyroid test should be repeated within 4 weeks time. Okay, and if if the patient is subclinical but is newly diagnosed in the first trimester of pregnancy, in that situation, the suggested dose is 1 to 1.2 microgram per gram daily. So, what is the difference? Here, the woman has overt hypothyroidism. Overt hypothyroidism diagnosed newly in the pregnancy. That means your new treatment you are starting. So, overt hypothyroidism, you are starting new treatment. This should be the dose, 1.5 microgram per kilogram per day, and repeat test 1 month or the 4 week time. Now, if your patient previously had a subclinical, now she became newly diagnosed in the first trimester, so levothyroxine to be started at a dose of 1 to 1.2 microgram. Now here there is a small increase in the dose. Thyroid function test to be done 4 to 6 weeks interval up to 20 week, and after 20 week, after that they should have another test at 28 weeks of pregnancy. TSH value should be less than 2.5, and FT4 should be kept within the normal trimester and manufacture specific pregnancy reference ranges. Is it clear, people? See, this what we read. We are read this dose increase in the levothyroxine. They did this way because patient already pregnant, already in she's known hypothyroid condition, she's already on levothyroxine, she becomes pregnant, so this will be the dose increase. Okay, this would be the dose increase. Another scenario, patient is newly diagnosed hypothyroid as a hypothyroid or overt hypothyroid in the pregnancy. So if the patient is overtly hypothyroid, diagnosed first time or newly in the pregnancy, 1.6 is the microgram is the dose, and repeat test in 4 week time. But if the patient is subclinical hypothyroid, newly diagnosed in the pregnancy, then they will give small dose to that woman. So 1 to 1.2 microgram per kilogram of body weight, and repeat test will also be late. So it is 4 to 6 weeks interval till 20 week time, and there should be another repeat test at 28 weeks. Is it clear, people? You want me to repeat? Is it clear? Hello, people. Is it clear? So no one. Okay, fine, good. Now, so this is the levothyroxine adjustment in the pregnancy, and now what happens postnatal? So postnatal, what they want, the patient, uh, patient who is adequately replaced on levothyroxine preconception, then revert back to preconception dose within 2 weeks postpartum. For example, a patient was a thyroid patient. she was taking altroxin or levothyroxine. During pregnancy there was an increase in the dose. Now you have to decrease the dose. So what you will do, you will decrease the dose with 2 weeks postnatal. Okay, for 2 weeks postnatal you will decrease the dose. Now the levothyroxine is like she was not taking prior to pregnancy or preconception period. Levothyroxine only started during pregnancy, or in that situation levothyroxine should be stopped post delivery, and a TFT should be done 6 weeks postnatal. Okay, so this part I'm repeating it again. Patient is taking levothyroxine preconception, the dose will be revert back to preconception dose 2 weeks postnatal, and the patient not taking thyroxine, it started during pregnancy, so we need to stop it post delivery, and the TFT should be done 6 weeks postnatal. Okay, so another thing that, yes, this is for the both subclinical and overt. This is general, this is for overt and subclinical both. Now, another scenario thing that the guideline says, if the patient has too much nausea, vomiting, and a daily she's not able to take altroxin, then altroxin dose or levothyroxine dose can be split in the two doses. Apart from this, if she's not able to take oral, then parenteral solutions are there. So, I checked with the internet, and the parenteral solution is there. So this is also an option. This basically necessary for the part 2 people, because sometimes they ask a question, the woman has a vomiting, she is unable to take medication, what will be the choice? So either you can split the dose if she can take, or it could be changed into the parenteral or IV. Okay, so now, till now, I explained you what like pre-pregnancy care in hypothyroid. Then dose change if the patient is on altroxin. Then starting the dose when the patient is not on when it is newly diagnosed in the pregnancy, and what could be the change postnatal. Okay, this is the summary. Like this way, it is given in the guideline. Now, this is also given that I put here. Thyroid routine testing for TPO is not done in the pregnancy, but if the patient is found to be a TPO positive, but the patient thyroid levels like TFT and TSHs are fine, those women TFT should be done in first trimester, and also at 20 weeks to detect the hypothyroidism. Okay, so the message that I want to give here, now if any prior test has been done and patient is found like anti-TPO positive. TPO is the body that is antibody that is related to Hashimoto disease, that is related to hypothyroid. Now patient was preconception patient, we know the patient has got anti-TPO antibody, but her thyroid function tests are fine. So for these kind of patient, you understand we are not giving any treatment, but the recommendation by the guideline for these kind of patient, we are offering TFT in first trimester. uh, Whenever she's meeting the like healthcare professional, we are repeating that at 20 weeks, because we there could be possibility this woman may develop hypothyroidism in pregnancy. Only if the patient has got TPO antibody, no treatment in the form of levothyroxine is given. So the take home message, if the woman has TPO antibody, please do TFT in first trimester and also repeated 20 weeks of pregnancy. Okay. Now this is the summary that is given by the guideline. So now, if the patient has overt or subclinical hypothyroidism, and TSH is TSH is more than 10, in that situation, altroxin has to be given. Okay. Apart from this, if the TSH is in upper reference range to 10 international unit, then if it is in the first trimester, altroxin levothyroxine is given. And apart from this, uh, if it is not treated, then the TFT is done 4 to 6 weeks interval up to 20-week time. Then again, the thyroid function test will be repeated at 28 weeks to find out whether the patient develops overt hypothyroidism. Okay. So apart from this, if the isolated hypothyroxemia is there, that is only one value you find that FT4 is low. In that situation, no treatment is required, but repeat test should be done 4 to 6 weeks time to make it sure that the thyroid functions are stable. If the patient has got TPO preconception, that I was just speaking, but the thyroid functions are fine within normal limit, then these patients should be offered testing at first trimester. When she is meeting first time the health professional, it should be repeated 20 weeks, but levothyroxine should not be given only on the presence of TPO antibody. Levothyroxine is only given when the patient shows the features of hypothyroidism. Now, is it clear? So, till that point, the management for the hypothyroidism is finished. Any one of you have got any question here? Any question? No question. Okay. So now we move to hyperthyroidism. These are the features of hypothyroidism, but I will not be speaking on that because you know. Now we are just interested in the what guidelines says. Okay, so now Graves' disease. Uh, so if the patient has a Graves' disease, then pre-pregnancy counseling. So pre-pregnancy counseling is recommended so that we can take care of the maternal and fetal adverse outcome. Now, option of definitive treatment with a radioactive iodine and thyroidectomy should be discussed if the severe disease is there. Now, this is a very important because previously, also previous few exams, Graves' disease task used to come in part 3. That time, patient wanted definitive treatment, and the people were not aware that what she is asking. But basically, anti-thyroid drugs has got so much of side effect. So the main thing that they want that a dose of thyroid medication to be decreased in the pregnancy. So before they plan pregnancy, they offer definitive treatment. The definitive treatment would be in form of they will give radioactive iodine or the thyroidectomy is done. Okay, why? Because this will decrease the dose of anti-thyroid drugs that is required in the pregnancy. Now, if the patient has been through any kind of definitive treatment, then patient has to wait 6 week a month time before they plan pregnancy. Apart from this, they should have a FT4 within the reference range. Like they should have a normal value of the FT4 two times 3 month apart. When these criterias are done, you will give green signal to your patient. Yes, now she can go and plan pregnancy. Apart from this, sometimes like this T, TRAB antibody, it is high post treatment also. If the antibody is high, we can understand this antibody will travel by placenta and the fetal Graves disease is there. So if a patient has got like a persistently high antibody, so in that situation, we would want the woman to delay conception even more than 6 months time. Hypothyroidism with the anti-thyroid drug, if they are trying to conceive, usually they should use propylthiouracil, that is PTU, in reference to carbimazole. Why? And the lowest effective dose to be given, we want FT4 in the upper half of the reference range. So this part is important. So if your patient wants to conceive, so she should be on PTU rather than carbimazole, and FT4 should be in the upper half of the reference range, and the lowest possible dose of the medication to be given. Every line from here is very important because you have to use in part 3 task, and also part 2 the direct question will come. Now, ab- about the hyperthyroid medication, if the patient has got history of hyperthyroidism, but she is euthyroid for 6 months, and or she is taking very low dose of antithyroid drug, CMZ less than 10 and PTU less than 200 milligram. In that situation, what they say, we can discontinue the medication, and there should be close monitoring of thyroid function. Okay. Now if your scenario, the patient has got a history of hyperthyroid, and the patient is in a within a like thyroid functions are normal within 6 month time, and this small amount of medication they are taking, 10 CMZ or 200 PTU. In that situation, you would ask women that she can discontinue this medication, but monitoring of thyroid function would be required. Okay, so this is a very new information. Apart from this, in this period, HCG concentration may rise, because HCG and TSH has got correlation. So close monitoring of thyroid would be required. Like they will do it 2 week time, every 2 weekly they will do. So if the thyroid medications are stopped in pregnancy, like if they fulfill this criteria, then we have to keep eye more, like more monitoring is required. Why? Because the patient is not on any kind of medication. Because of that, every 2 week they will check the thyroid functions until second trimester of until mid trimester of pregnancy. And why mid trimester? Because from the previously, as I told, that this HCG value is high in initial part of pregnancy, and by mid pregnancy it decreases. Because of that, the effect on the thyroid hormone will also decrease. Because of that, we are doing increased monitoring 2 weekly. Okay. Apart from this, another few thing. If PTU, or that is a propyl thiouracil, it is a recommended drug in early pregnancy. If your patient is conceived on CMZ, then it should be converted to PTU as early as possible, but prior to 10 weeks of pregnancy. And the ratio of dose should be 1 in 20. And like uh, there is no benefit if switching of PTU is done after 10 weeks of pregnancy. Now this is very interesting also. Why it is so? Because period of teratogenicity is 6 to 10 weeks time. So if a patient comes to you like 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and she is on CMZ, your answer would be, or in your clinical practice you will convert that to PTU. But if your patient comes to you at 11 weeks of pregnancy, that time this change will make no sense, because period of teratogenicity would have passed by that time. Okay, so this is also very important knowledge. Now, hyperthyroid. So during first half of pregnancy, if a patient is taking anti-thyroid medications, okay, so TFT monitoring will be done every 2 to 4 weeks. And if the patient has stopped medication, then it will be done 2 weekly. That part I have already explained. After 20 weeks, monitoring would increase to 4 to 8 weekly. So let me repeat. They want, if the patient is on medication, TFT 2 to 4 weekly. If the patient has left medication, then we would require to have an increased monitoring 2 weekly or fortnightly. And after 20 weeks, it should be 4 to 8 weekly, the testing would be done. Okay. And what is the we have to offer the lowest effective dose. So FT4 will be upper half of the pregnancy range. Now why this FT4 is upper half of pregnancy range? This is the answer. Because we want to minimize the fetal hypothyroidism from transplacental passage of drugs. Now these anti-thyroid drugs, they pass to child, to fetus, and if it is passing to fetus, it affects fetus, and the baby would have hypothyroidism. Now, so we want to titrate that medication dose should be such like that the T4 should be in upper half of the pregnancy reference range. Now, if we keep it in a lower half, then more amount of drug we are offering to the patient, more antithyroid drug the baby is getting, and more chances of hypothyroidism. So this is a basic principle and understanding that is necessary. Now, apart from this, titration is never based on TSH concentration, or like there is no role of FT3 and total T3 values. Okay, so this also you have to understand. It is measured by the FT4 only. Now, this is again an important thing. Now, when the patient have a hyperthyroidism, we say that there would be IUGR, but we know people that pathology behind the IUGR is a placental insufficiency. But if the IUGR is caused by hyperthyroidism, then it is the anti uh, see the definitive range is not there. uh, like whenever the checks are like thyroid values are checked, then what like mechanism they are using. So that machine and manufacturer decide pregnancy reference ranges are there. So for every trimester that range is there, and that range we have to see when we are checking the patient thyroid function test result. In those value, a T4 level should be on like upper half of the upper half it should lie rather than lower half. So there is no fixed range. What the guidelines says that we have to follow the manufacturer the range that is given by the manufacturer, because they have got like software or what are the mechanism they are checking their thyroid functions. Every lab has got different mechanism to check. So they will give their range. So whenever you are reading the results, please check the reference ranges that usually the lab gives you in a print. Okay, so now the IUGR that happens in the hyperthyroidism, it is because of because TRB or antithyroidics or increased fetal thyroid hormones, they may disrupt metabolism and growth and development of fetus. So take home message that IUGR in hypothyroidism, it is not caused by your placental insufficiency. It is caused by change in the baby metabolism because of the thyroid hormone, baby thyroid hormones. Okay, so this is the pathology behind the IUGR is different. So, like if the uterine artery Doppler is done at 20 to 24 weeks, there would be no harm because this will not be able to pick anything. Because of that, ultra umbilical artery Doppler should be recommended. So this is very interesting to know. Okay, so because basically what we read in IUGR, it is a placental insufficiency, and the most common mechanism is PIH. So we do uterine artery Doppler because we want to see that diastolic notch, but that part will not be there in hyperthyroidism. If the hyperthyroidism is the cause behind IUGR, because there would be no change in the uterine artery because of the fetal metabolic dysregulation, change will appear in the umbilical artery only. So this is an important part that in the guideline. So umbilical artery Doppler should be done monthly from 26 to 28 weeks. In which patient, if they have got uncontrolled Graves disease and they are on antithyroid treatment, or if their TR antibody is three times high for the threshold for positivity. So these are the criteria where umbilical artery Doppler should be done monthly from 26 to 28 weeks. So this is for antithyroid patient. Now, what the recommendation for antibody measurement? If the patient in first trimester, it is antibody should be measured. This is the stimulating antibody people. I already told you in the if a patient has history of Graves disease or if any and definitive treatment is there, like why they are want to measure these antibodies, because if the patient has got like for example they have already gone Graves disease management and the patient is fine, but still antibody may be present because antibody definitive treatment will take away the patient symptoms, but antibody would be there only. So it has to be checked. Apart from this, if it is above the threshold for positivity, and the patient is not on antithyroid drug, then again measurement should be done at 20 to 28 weeks of pregnancy. So these are the two conditions. If the patient has a history of Graves' disease, even after the treatment we do TRB measurement, and if any time any patient it is above the threshold, and the patient is on, or if the patient is on antithyroid drug, then there should be re-measurement at 20 to 28 weeks of pregnancy. So fetal thyroid hormone, thyroid produces appreciable amount of hormone and respond to TRAB from 18 to 20 weeks of gestation, and TRAB usually decline after 20 weeks of gestation. Okay, so why we are worried? Why we are measuring this? Because this TRAB transplacental transfer is there, so baby would get TRAB. If the baby is getting TRAB, what will happen? Baby will develop thyrotoxicosis. So this antibodies at 20 to 28 weeks we are checking, because if these antibodies are high here, then possibly the baby will develop thyrotoxicosis. Okay, this is the aim why we are measuring these antibodies. Now another thing, very thyroidectomy in pregnancy. So this is also asked in the part 3 exam, that patient asked, do I require surgery, doctor? So answer is yes, if she has got potential compromise of airway, like if she is facing that like a dysphagia and all these issues because of the compression of the increased size of thyroid gland, yes, thyroidectomy should be advised. If it is done, it is taken in the second trimester of pregnancy. More than 22 weeks it should be avoided, because there would be increased risk of preterm. Apart from this, if uh, if the operative management has been done, as because your parathyroid glands are also there, there could be some damage there, so there could be issues with the calcium metabolism. So close perioperative management of FT4 and calcium concentration should be required. Apart from this, if you temporarily, if the thyroid symptoms are very high, in that condition patient, like they're having too much of tachycardia, so for temporary they can be given beta blockers, that is a propranolol, but we are offering them in a small doses. The reason we already know, because they are associated with the risk of small baby. Okay, so this is the answer to thyroidectomy, that we were writing when we were doing the task. That time too much of information we don't have. Now the guideline comes and the answer becomes more clear. Now again, antithyroid drug, carbimazole, active metabolite is methimazole, that is MMI, and another is PTU. Minor side effect will be skin rash that can happen 3 to 5% of the women. Severe side effect is agranulocytosis that can happen in 0.1 to 5.1%. Liver failure can happen in 0.1%. Liver failure is more common with PTU, because PTU is a hepatotoxic medication, and a patient, if any of your patient develops agranulocytosis, her medication would be changed, and if the patient develops like hepatotoxicity with the PTU, then also the medication change would be there. Okay, so these are linked to the teratogenic side effects. Because of that, aim is to give the smallest possible dose. Aim is to do the definitive treatment prior to pregnancy, so that patient has to take very small amount of medications. Now this is CMZ. CMZ is so it causes embryopathy, aplasia cutis. Now see people, this is a picture of a aplasia cutis. Basically this is the picture sent to me by one of the students only, and the patient was on carbimazole, and this is the incidental finding, and at the time of delivery this was there, like this defect, and this is the aplasia cutis. And post delivery, yes, what the how the management was done, that the sutures were applied here. So there could be clonal esophageal atresia, abdominal wall defects, eye and urinary abnormalities, ventricular septal defects. In order to background risk, the teratogenic effect usually happens when the exposure is in between 6 to 10 weeks time. This part would be important for part 2 people, because you will get direct question from here. PTU birth defects are less, but still face and neck cyst, urinary tract abnormalities can happen in 2 to 3% of the children exposed during early pregnancy. This is from the guideline. So this part also you should know about the this antithyroid medication. Now, in thyrotoxicosis, in Graves' disease, thyrotoxicosis, or hyperthyroidism, fetal monitoring is very important. Why? Because directly the baby is getting affected. Now, fetal or neonatal hyperthyroidism occur in 1 to 5% of the women, and they usually with the active. Because of that, we are doing TRB antibody checks at 28 to 28 20 and 28 weeks of pregnancy. That part I have already explained. Because if this TRB is a high limit, high value, so we would expect that the baby would develop hyperthyroidism, because there will be transplacental passage of antibiotics. Okay. Apart from this, baby is at a risk of IUGR if the TRB is high, three times normal. How the IUGR develops, that I have already explained. They want surveillance by the every time when the baby, if the mother with a coming antenatal woman is coming with the on hyperthyroid, hyperthyroid medications. So increase fetal surveillance. They want fetal heart auscultation every 2 to 4 weeks. Why? Because fetal tachycardia occurs, and it could be more than 170, and it would be more than 10 minutes time. So sometime only fetal with a fetal tachycardia, they would be able to know that the baby has already developed thyrotoxicosis or hyperthyroidism. Okay. Apart from this, if a significant amount of antibodies are there, then USG would be started early. Why? Because we have to monitor baby growth, amniotic fluid volume, the, severe polyhydramnios secondary to the compression of esophagus by goiter and decreased swallowing, and possibly cardiac dysrhythmias are there, and fetal drops are there. So, if any patient has got antithyroid antibodies, apart from this, if the patient is having too much in that situation, there could be fetal IUGR, there could be polyhydramnios, because the esophagus is compressed by the goiter. There could be possible cardiac dysrhythmia, there could be heart failure, there could be fetal hydrops. Okay. Now, you are doing monitoring and you find the baby has a tachycardia and you are suspecting that baby has hyperthyroid. What you will do? It is the same plain simple answer: refer to fetal medicine specialist. Because fetal hyperthyroid condition, we gynecologists will not see. We would refer the patient to fetal medicine specialist. So from this line also you can get guys question. This is like very important and an informative guideline. Now, in hyperthyroidism patient, peripartum and neonatal hyperthyroidism. So, they can go vaginal birth, fetal heart monitoring is required. Apart from this, if in the baby or neonates of a mother with a Graves disease, they should, if they have got a TRAB, like antibodies are high, then thyroid functioning should be done 1 to 2 week after birth and 1 to 2 week post birth. Okay. Because we are worried for neonatal hyperthyroidism, and we want to detect that. Okay. So usually, if the understand people, that if this antibody TRAB antibodies are high, then they pass baby through to baby by the fetus, through the by the placenta. They will stimulate baby thyroid, and there will be neonatal hyperthyroidism. This is one thing. Second thing, what can happen? This anti-thyroid drug like PTU or carbimazole, if we are treating mother, these medications are also going to baby. So this medication may cause hypothyroidism to baby. So neonatal hypothyroidism can also occur. So if a mom having Graves disease, So there could be possibility baby maybe turn out to be having neonatal hyperthyroidism because of antibodies, or baby can have hypothyroidism because of medications, okay, antithyroid medications. Now one thing also I want to add here, like previously when we were reading prior to this guideline, that time your question answer was antithyroid drug and altroxin both should be given as a treatment. But in this guideline there is one paragraph is there, and that writes that two treatments should not be done simultaneously. For example, like antithyroid for mother and altroxin for baby, so treatment should not be done simultaneously because it brings more risk. Okay, this is a new thing I got in this guideline. And now they want only one kind of treatment. Okay, they're not offering altroxin to the baby, they are only offering anti-thyroid medication to the mother only. Baby monitoring will be done during pregnancy and when the baby is born. Okay. uh, okay, so this is the post peripartum care and the neonatal hyperthyroidism. Now what they want postpartum, so postpartum they want tft to be done 6 to 8 weeks time. Why? Because increase autoimmunity in postpartum period 3 to 4 times. That there would be uh, uh, new onset hyperthyroid can happen, or there could be relapse. Okay, so postnatal 6 to 8 weeks TFT testing people in a woman of hyperthyroidism. Apart from this, CMZ and PTU both are considered safe medication in the breastfeeding, but the lowest possible dose should be given. Apart from this, what they say, like they can be given in smaller doses. It is so that means it is not that single time. They can divide it into 2 3 small doses. Anti Antithyroid drug, if it now if the antithyroid medications are taken by mother, baby would get that. Okay, so in that situation, that would reduce the risk of developing neonatal hyperthyroidism that is caused by uterine derived antibodies. So growth and development of the infants who, if the mother is taking anti-thyroid medication, should be monitored, and there should be routine assessment of their thyroid also. Okay, so beyond the initial surveillance for neonatal dysfunction during breastfeeding is not required. So initial surveillance is required. So the medication can be considered in breastfeeding. Apart from this, the lowest possible dose should be given. Baby should be monitored, and 2 3 small doses can be given. In any other, not given in this guideline, but other places. So what it is given that mother should be asked to breastfeed the to take the medication after she has done the breastfeeding. So that will also reduce the amount of medication that would transfer to the baby. Now this is a till this point, any one of you have got any question? Because now hyperthyroidism, what is covered in the guideline, I have explained. Any question, anyone? Okay. Now this is very important identity, and the good thing is that with this identity, guideline has just come, and the part three already showed the task. So a recent exam we had a task that has got the gestational transient thyrotoxicosis. Okay, so it came in like I think day one or day two of exam. So gestational transient thyrotoxicosis, severe nausea, vomiting alone should not prompt thyroid function testing unless specific thyrotoxicosis symptoms or the previous history for thyroid dysfunction is there. New finding of suppressed TSH and increased T4, FT4. So grave disease should be distinguished from gestational thyrotoxicosis. Now, gestational thyrotoxicosis, it is because of increase in HCG value that causes stimulation of the stimulation at the thyroid. Increased FT4 is there. So basically, supportive and symptomatic treatment is required. Okay, so gestational thyrotoxicosis, this I already explained. It is caused by high concentration of HCG stimulating TSH receptors, common in the situations where the multiple pregnancies, HMOL or choriocarcinoma is there. Usually, SCG peaks around 10 weeks and subside by 18 to 20 weeks. So, similarly, gestational thyrotoxicosis transient, it will be presenting in first two trimesters only, and new onset Graves, um, that can happen in 0.05% are less common. Okay, and if there is doubt is there that whether we are dealing with a case of gestational thyrotoxicosis, or whether it is a newly diagnosed gestation a newly diagnosed Graves disease is there, in that situation a repeat test can be done 2 week time, 2 week later. Okay, TSH usually take longer time to recover, so it is very less helpful in deciding anything. Now this is a table, this is a wonderful table given in the guideline. How we can define, why I have put this table in this manner, because recently it came in the exam. So, gestational transient thyrotoxicosis and Graves disease, how to differentiate? So, in gestational transient thyrotoxicosis, symptoms of like previous history of thyrotoxicosis will not be present. Personal and family history will not be present. Presence of goiter should not be there. That exophthalmos should not be there, and FT3 would be normal. In 85% of the cases FT3 would be normal. TRB antibody should be normal only. Only gestational transient gestational thyrotoxicosis, one thing would be positive, that is hyperemesis gravidarum, and it happens in 60%. This number is important, guys. Now if a patient has a Graves disease, then yes, they would have symptom prior to pregnancy. They would have a previous history also. They would have a goiter also. Their exophthalmos or eye condition will be there in 20%. Antibody has to be positive and FT3 would be increased. Okay, so this is the Graves disease. So what the task that appeared in the exam, the patient has got TSH value was very low, and FT3 was high. So if the FT3 is high and there was a one value only, okay, so that was usually with the hyperemesis. So it was in gestational transient thyrotoxicosis, because apart from this in the exam FT3 value given was high. So there was a suspicion that it could be new onset Graves. So how we can check that? 2 week that we can repeat the test after 2 week, and we can do antibody testing, so that time differentiation can be done. So this is a small thing that was asked in the exam, but the people were confused. So hyperthyroidism summary as per guideline. So if it is subclinical, no treatment is required. But if it is Graves disease, if the diagnosis is done in the first trimester, we will offer the PTU. If it is done after that, we would offer carbimazole. If GT is present, that is a gestational transient thyrotoxicosis, only supportive treatment, no antithyroid medication is required. Okay, this is a small summary. So now, what the guideline says about the thyroid nodule and thyroid cancer. So thyroid nodule, prevalence of thyroid nodule is based on ultrasound studies, because when they check it would be clinical or also, but usually on the USG they can get detected. And in with the USG studies, in the iodine deficient area it is like 21 to 15 to 21%. Apart from this, clinically apparent nodules will be under 1%, and they would increase with parity and age, and size may increase in pregnancy. So, related to parity and age, thyroid cancer is very rare. It is 14 in 1 lakh, likely to be diagnosed postpartum. Important for part 2 people. Okay, these all these paper values. Now, thyroid nodules and cancer. If a woman has a new enlarging detectable thyroid nodule, then TFT is done and referred to appropriate specialist, because compression is causing ENT specialist and endocrinologist. Now, if the suspicion is there, then what should be the test done? Now, usually we do first ultrasound. After that, it is FNAC, fine needle aspiration to be done. If thyroid surgery is required, then it will be done 14 to 22 weeks. And that we already do that. If the surgery is required in pregnancy, it is in this time period only. Okay. Apart from this, risk of pregnancy and recurrence. Now, if the patient has thyroid and if the thyroid cancer, so what will be the effect on pregnancy and progression and recurrence? So patient to be given counseling that there will be no difference. Okay, there would be no difference. And surgery is most common, surgery for most common thyroid cancer diagnosed in pregnancy to be deferred until the delivery, unless there is a substantial growth, airway compression, or progressive disease. So, take home message, like pregnancy will not if have any effect on the prognosis or rate of recurrence of thyroid cancer. Apart from this, the treatment would be surgery. If it is required, ideally we would delay till the baby is born. But if we have to do, it will be done in the second trimester, 11 to 40, 22 weeks of pregnancy. And when the surgery is done, when significant airway compression or rapidly progressive disease is there. Okay, so now this is the kind of last part of this guideline, and very nicely, they have given this. This is identity is like postpartum thyroiditis. So, like we used to read in our UG days, the things were not that clear, but this guideline really creates. This is a very nice guideline they have created. So, PPT or postpartum thyroiditis, it is a development of thyroid dysfunction excluding other thyroid disease within first 12 months following pregnancy when the woman is previously euthyroid. So please remember this definition. Basically, this is after post delivery, immune system comes back to normal, and the antibody again to TPO and thyroglobulins are there. They cause reactivation of immune system. Because of that, this happens. Okay, it is more common in the women with type 1 diabetes with the SLE or previous history of Graves disease. It can also occur in women who are having Hashimoto-thyroiditis. 40 to 50, 30 to 50% women with TPO antibody positive uh, has a higher risk of developing having postpartum thyroiditis. Classical feature, what really happens, there would be a thyrotoxicosis phase, like patient will show the hyperthyroid symptom. After that there would be transient hypothyroid, then they become normal. Okay, this is the classical picture, but this could be variation. 20 to 40% will show classical symptom, 20 to 30% will only show thyrotoxicosis, and 40 to 50 shows only isolated hypothyroidism. Okay, and thyrotoxicosis phase, like thyrotoxicosis phase will be in 2 to 6 month postnatal, but it may be extended to 12 month. And like hypothyroid phase would be there in between 3 to 12 months of postpartum, and permanent hypothyroid occur in 50% of the cases. So this percentage is important for you guys to remember, that 50% of the women post PPIT, they will turn up having hypothyroid condition. These are the risk factor for permanent hypothyroidism: multiparity, high concentration of antibody, advanced age, more severe hypothyroidism, thyroid hypoechogenicity on the USG, and history of pregnancy loss. You may get question from here. What are the risk? How much is the hypothyroidism post delivery, and how much is the risk factor for permanent hypothyroidism that is associated? Risk of relapse will be 30% in the future pregnancy if a TPO antibody is present. Okay, so the thyroid, this is painless and asymptomatic. The small diffuse goiter may be there, Thyrotoxicosis phase, that there could be features of irritability, palpitation, heat intolerance. Hypothyroid will show the cold intolerance, dry skin, fatigue, and concentration difficulties. And the TPO-AB would be positive. Okay, so, as I already told you, that there would be a classical feature where thyrotoxic features in first 6 to 12 month time, and there would be a hypothyroid phase, then there would be a euthyroid phase. Now, again, uh, there are two things that we should know, that postpartum thyroiditis has a thyrotoxic phase, and post-delivery Graves' disease may also be there. Now, how to do the differentiation, whether we are dealing with a case of PPT or whether we are dealing with a case of Graves' disease? So now these are the differences. In PPT, that means postpartum thyroiditis, thyrotoxicosis symptom will be in first 3 month time. Okay, Graves disease, it will be like say 6 month following birth. So it is in for first 3 month. The hair thyrotoxicosis symptoms 6 month later. Now in PPT, T4 and T3 raised. Here, what will happen? There will be ophthalmic involvement. There would be goiter with a brute, or there will be antibody level will be high, TRAB. Apart from this, if the radio technetium scan is done, like radioactive scan is done using radioiodine or technetium, it would be uptake of radioisotope will be low, but here the uptake of radioisotope will be increased. So these are the markers. With this, we'll be able to differentiate whether you are dealing with a case of postpartum thyroiditis or Graves' disease. If these isotopes are taken like technetium 99 or radioiodine, these are these isotopes are secreted in the breast milk. So breast milk should be discarded for 3 days after the radioactive investigation. So this part also you should be aware of. Apart from this, if the biopsy is done, in case of PPT, there could be histopathology, where there should be lymphatic infiltration would be there. Okay, lymphatic infiltration would be there. Now, postpartum thyroiditis recommendation, what they say, that if the features of thyrotoxicosis, TFT should be done. Apart from this, if to confirm this, serial hyperthyroid test should be done every 6 weeks. Apart and thyroid function, any point thyroid function test show thyrotoxicosis, then TRB should be measured and radioisotope scan has been done. This part I have already been explained. So if there is a confusion that if is it a PPT or is it a Graves disease, in that situation, yeah, antibody testing will be done. It will be positive in Graves disease, and radioactive isotope testing would be done. It will be low in PPT and it would be high or increased in Graves disease. Postpartum thyroiditis, how you will treat. Antithyroid drugs are not given in thyrotoxicosis phase. Please understand, you will get question from this line. Apart from this, symptomatic treatment with beta blocker can be done in thyrotoxicosis phase. Beta blockers like propranolol and metoprolol can be given. Propranolol and metoprolol, these are safe in breastfeeding. But after thyrotoxicosis phase, patient will develop hypothyroid phase. When the patient develops hypothyroid phase, that time levothyroxine has to be done. Okay, please just remember this very nicely. In thyrotoxicosis phase, only symptomatic treatment or beta blockers. When the patient have an euthyroid and when the patient has an hypothyroid phase, then levothyroxine or altroxin has to be given. Okay, people. So this part I have already explained. If PT is diagnosed 6 weekly, they will do TFT because there are so much transitions are going on. So they have to do a TFT testing. Apart from this, it is mostly resolved spontaneously. 50% will develop permanent hypothyroidism, and if the euthyroid phase occurs, like patient becomes euthyroid, then A TSH should be done annually because anytime they will develop the hypothyroidism. Please understand, if we are postnatal, if we are expecting PPT, TFT should be done 6 weekly because there are so much changes are going on. We have to adjust the doses, and if it develops like hypothyroid, then treatment is done. But if the patient is fine, then also TSH should be done annually because anytime the woman may become hypothyroid. If the patient is planning for pregnancy and history of PPT is there, thyroid in that situation, thyroid test should be done because maybe the patient is have got any hypothyroid features. And but there is insufficient evidence to give levothyroxine or iodine or selenium to prevent and to treat PPT. In PPT treatment, selenium, iodine, or levothyroxine as a prophylaxis is not given. So, another take home message, it is the monitoring of thyroid and giving the patient symptomatic treatment. Okay, these are the role and responsibilities of health professional. So now if the patient has got thyroid disease known prior to pregnancy, in that situation, implication to be discussed. At first contact, TFT is given. If the patient is on levothyroxine, increase in dose that I already explained you. If the patient is on CMZ and she comes less than 10 weeks, PTO to be changed and appropriate referral to the endocrinologist, obstetrician to be done accordingly, and a GP to be follow up. If the patient has no thyroid history, then risk assessment is done. What are the risk factor for development of thyroid? That table I have shown. If the risk factor is there, then they will do TFT test as soon as possible or in the middle of first trimester. And interpretation of the result has to be done trimester specific ranges. If necessary, early referral to the specialist is done. Okay, either endocrinologist, obstetrician, or for the further management of pregnancy. Okay, that's all for this guideline. Very wonderful guideline, and that clears so much of doubt about hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, and thyroid cancer and the postpartum thyroiditis. Any one of you have got any question can ask me. Anyone, any question? No question. Thank you for joining, people. All the best for part two. That is, that exam is there day after. Yeah, and yeah, all the best for your upcoming exams also. Thank you for joining. Bye.